Welcome to Wisdom from the Word. Bible Fellowship Church is a family of believers who want to help others discover and strengthen their relationship with Jesus Christ. And we're praying this message helps you strengthen your walk with Him. Now let's dive in.
Good morning. Today's words of wisdom is about verbal sin. We discussed this last time when we considered three categories of verbal sin. First, pointing the finger. Secondly, there was the case of one putting themselves at the absolute center of any situation, usually resulting in self-pity. As before, restraining the tongue limits the unrighteous frame of mind to the miserable self. Thirdly, there was the sin of gossip, best summarized by Proverbs 26:20. And I quote, "Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a conflict ceases. Like charcoal for embers and wood for a fire, so is the quarrelsome man for kindling strife." The words of gossip are like choice morsels that go down into the innermost soul. End quote. For today, we consider three more verbal sins. First, there's having to be right, or trying to prove ourselves. Consider Luke 16:15. Quote, "And he said to them, 'You are those who justify yourself before men, but God knows your heart. For what is exalted among men is an abomination in the sight of God.'" End of quote. The effect of someone always needing to be right on others can be quite significant. It often leads to situations where relationships and communication suffer. Here are some key points to consider. The use of the tongue in this manner will immediately reduce the openness of listeners to share information and ideas with you. It impinges on the freedom of all individuals, including the speaker. Galatians 5:13, and I quote, "For you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another." End quote. After God has declared one free, seeking to justify or prove oneself is spiritually crippling. One is trashing their own freedom. It certainly inhibits one from acknowledging their mistakes. Having to always have the last word equally enslaves one to verbal sin and social isolation. Others may avoid interactions to prevent any conflict. It's important to balance the desire to be right with the ability to listen and consider other viewpoints, fostering healthier interactions and personal growth. Next, speaking out of fear. Psalm 37:7, I quote, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices." End quote. Proverbs 29:25, quote, "The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe." End quote. Fearful speech can create a lack of trust in God's protection and plan. The Bible encourages believers to have faith and trust in God rather than being driven by fear. For instance, 2 Timothy 1:7 says, quote, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." End of quote. The second thing it does is create decisions that are contrary to God's plan and guidance. A biblical example is when God Himself told Moses what He wanted Moses to do. Moses spoke directly out of his fear. The Lord's anger burned against Moses. As we know, God did offer an alternative. Remember, God logs in every word. Finally, for today, there is the sin of speaking in anger. In Proverbs 29:11, quote, "A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back." End quote. The New Testament also offers guidance in enhancing anger. Ephesians 4:26-27 advises not to sin in anger and not to let the sun go down on it. James 1:19-20 encourages being slow to anger, and human anger doesn't achieve God's righteousness. Matthew 5:21-22 warns that being angry with a brother can lead to judgment, even as severe as hell of fire. When you feel the pot begin to boil, consider these things. Pray. Silently, obviously. Pause and breathe like a deep breath. Count to 10 or step away from the situation briefly. The pause can prevent impulsive reactions. Express calmly. Communication you're feeling calmly. Use I statements to express how you feel without blaming others. For example, say, I felt hurt when, rather than saying, you always, whatever. Practice empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Consider their perspective and feelings. Empathy helps reduce anger. And finally, there's the option of practicing silence. Sometimes we can use our words to build up rather than tear down, help rather than hurt, and to encourage rather than discourage. May the Lord of peace and love guard your heart and your mouth. Good day.
Thank you for joining us for Wisdom in the Word. If you're looking for additional resources to help strengthen your walk with Jesus Christ, visit bfcsebring.com or download our mobile app.